position is that since North Korea has a capability of more than 3,000 kilometers in its missile range, and that is one reason why you hope to extend the missile range of here in South Korea. What are your thoughts on this? And what are some of the preconditions in order to resume the six-party talks? The last question was also going out to both President Obama and President Lee. You just asked 3 questions.
It's hard to remember them all. Well, the first question, I think, I basically answered. My impressions with respect to the DMZ and the North Korean leadership. With respect to the issue of extending missile ranges, I think President Lee got it exactly right. We have this incredibly powerful alliance that is multidimensional and involves a whole range of coordination, training activities, making sure that there's interoperability with respect to various weapon systems and our defensive capabilities. And so all these issues are being discussed as we move forward to implementing the 2015 plan. And so there are no specific preconditions around or specific obstacles around the missile range issue. Rather, it's a broader question of what are the needs in order for us to fulfill our enduring goals around the alliance. And a lot of that is technical. A lot of it takes place not at the presidential level, but rather at the military level. We will continue to instruct our teams that they work closely together to ensure what is the ultimate outcome, which is not any particular weapon system or any particular missile range, but rather, can we protect our people? Can we make sure that the objectives of the alliance are achieved? With respect to the six-party talks, look, we've been very clear about this again and again. It's not that complicated. If the North Koreans are serious about entering into six-party talks, they have to show that they are operating in good faith. At minimum, that requires them suspending activities that right now clearly are contrary to previous obligations that they've made and international law. And when they do that, then we'll be able to sit down and resolve, hopefully, some of these longer-term issues. In the absence of that, it's hard to figure out how these discussions would be productive. And frankly, President Lee and I both have a lot of things to do, and so we try not to have our teams sit around tables talking in circles without actually getting anything done. And my hope is that at some point the North Koreans make the decision that it is in their interests to try to figure out how to feed their people and improve their economy rather than have big parades where they show off weapons. Mark Leiner. You can use them both, Mark.
Exactly. Thank you both. Question first from President Obama. Mr. President, in the past, you've been, particularly when frustrated with China on the issue of North Korea, not shy about telling President Hu that the U.S. will do what's necessary to protect its national security interests. As you're meeting President Hu tomorrow, I wonder what message will you give him regarding North Korea? Are you satisfied with the pressure that China has brought to bear on North Korea? Is there more they could be doing? And is it realistic to think that if they pushed hard enough, they might persuade the North Koreans not to go ahead with the satellite launch. And a question for President Lee. As long as my colleague asked President Obama for his views on Kim Jong-un, I'd like to ask you your views. You live here. You've paid attention to North Korea for longer than our president has, I dare say. And I just wonder whether you think he is, as the president suggested, still in a very tenuous situation, or whether you see him as really establishing quite some control.
Well, first of all, I look forward to my meeting with President Hu tomorrow. Obviously, the issue of North Korea will be one among a number of topics that we discuss. My communications with the Chinese have been very consistent on this issue. It is my firm belief that it is in none of our interests to see either tension and instability on the peninsula, and it's not in anybody's interest to see a nuclearized peninsula. The Chinese say they agree with that. The question then is, given that they have more influence and closer diplomatic relations with North Korea than any other country on earth, what are they doing to help guide or encourage North Korea to take a more constructive approach? And that certainly will be a topic of conversation. Now, I am sympathetic to the fact that they share a border with North Korea. They are deeply concerned about potential instability in that country and what ramifications it might have on China. And it is important to recognize that they have a broad range of equities when it comes to how they operate with North Korea, given that they're neighbors. But what I've said to them consistently is rewarding bad behavior, turning a blind eye to deliberate provocations, trying to paper over these not just provocative words, but extraordinarily provocative acts that violate international norms, that's not obviously working. So in the same way that North Korea needs to do something new if it actually wants to do right by its people, my suggestion to China is that how they communicate their concerns to North Korea should probably reflect the fact that the approach they've taken over the last several decades hasn't led to a fundamental shift in North Korea's behavior. And the irony, of course, is that during the last 20 years, China has leapt into the 21st century, in part by abandoning some of the practices that North Korea still clings to. And you couldn't ask for a better model of the difference, at least on the economic front, that different policies have made. And again, I believe China is very sincere that it does not want to see North Korea with a nuclear weapon. But it is going to have to act on that interest in a sustained way. And if it does, I think together between the South Koreans, the Japanese, the Russians, the Chinese, and ourselves, I think we can have a real impact.
Yeah.
With regards to your question about Kim Jong-un and my impression on him, it's a difficult question. I think it's safe to say that it's rather premature for anyone to make any initial assessment or analysis of Kim Jong-un. or have an accurate impression on Kim Jong-un. I think it's safe to say that the majority of North Korean people themselves are probably having a difficult time trying to assess their own leader because it hasn't been very long since he assumed the leadership role. So I don't think any leader around the world is going to give you a definitive impression or an answer to your question. But having said that, I initially did have a bit of an expectation that he will take a different path. But his recent announcement was a source of disappointment. Nonetheless, I will wait and see and give you a more definitive answer of my impression on Kim Jong-un, and I think that will be more accurate. Any new leader in North Korea will have to understand that he cannot survive alone in this world. In this day and age, no country or people or leader, for that matter, cannot stand alone. It is imperative that all leaders and countries work together as a responsible member of the international community, and this is the surest way to ensure a better life for the people of that country. And if they do so, of course, including the Republic of Korea and the United States and many other members of the international community, will help the North Koreans realize a better life for their people.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Randy Kay. You've just been watching President Obama making remarks during his stop there in South Korea. He is there for a summit, as you have learned there, on the world's nuclear future and threats in the region. A couple of highlights from the president's remarks. He told North Korea it will achieve nothing by threats and provocation. The president said that if North Korea goes ahead with the missile launch, it will deepen their isolation and damage relations as well. Mr. Obama said South Korea and the U.S. will deal sternly with any North Korean provocations. He said bad behavior will not be rewarded. We'll have much more on this when CNN Weekend Early Start returns in just 1 minute.